Part 8. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 71. Chapter 71. Something went wrong. If I understand correctly, what Dr. Wu meant is that the second lady's pulse is indeed poisoning. Maybe I didn't make a mistake in the diagnosis at the time, but something went wrong in the past few days that led to the current situation. Dr. Zhang's explanation was so reasonable that even Dr. Wu couldn't help but agree with him. Then what's the problem? The old lady looked at Imperial Physician Wu and Dr. Zhang, and they looked at each other. Physician Wu spoke first. What I am sure of is that the second Miss Su is suffering from red poison. Red trichosanths. There is no such substance in the prescription I prescribed for the second lady. However, red trichosanths is always used as a poison for external use. Is it possible that the second lady has something on her face that this substance was put on? Dr. Zhang's words reminded everyone. Mother Zhang, get all the things on your face that girl Yun used. As soon as the old lady gave an order, Granny Zhang, Lian Xian, and others got into action, took all the facial objects that Sulayun had used these days, and placed them in front of Imperial Physician Wu and Dr. Zhang. The method of testing for poison is also very simple. Just put it on the fire and roast it. If pungent green smoke comes out, it is poisoned. This is also the method Sulayun used at the beginning. I tried one after another, and soon, I got to the cream. As soon as I put it on, a pungent green smoke came out. The old lady and Suwaner covered their noses and took a few steps back. Is this the poisoned thing? Back to the old lady, exactly. Physician Wu put it into his nose and smelled it to confirm. At this time, there was movement in the house. Sun Gro said with a crying voice, Yunur, you wake up. Sulayun opened his eyes in a daze and looked at Sun Gro. Mom, what's wrong with me? Mother Zhang said you suddenly fell into a coma after drinking the medicine. Just wake up and you'll be fine. Mom, I'm fine, why are you still crying? Sulayun's voice was a little weak, and his lips were extremely pale. Sun Gro quickly stretched out her hand to wipe away her tears. Mom, I won't cry anymore, I won't cry anymore. Girl Yun woke up. The old lady walked in from behind the screen. Sulayun wanted to get up and salute the old lady, but the old lady stopped her. Okay, you don't need to get up if you feel uncomfortable. Thank you, Grandma. Sulayun forced a smile. Grandma, I wonder what's going on outside, it's so noisy. Your face cream has been poisoned. Poison? Sulayun was startled. How is it possible? But the old lady's expression told her that this matter was indeed true. Mother Zhao followed in and said, Old madam, all the servants in the second Mrs. Yard are kneeling in the yard. I have already sent people to search their rooms. I want to see who is so bold as to poison the young lady. The old lady's voice was cold, and she and Aunt Zhao left the house. There was no one in the room except Sulayun and Sun Gro, as well as Grandma Li beside them. Yunur, is there really no problem with this? Mom, don't worry. Sulayun whispered. Soon there was a sound outside the house, but no poison was found in anyone's house. But someone found a veil in the small warehouse. Whose veil is this? Mama Zhao asked, holding up the handkerchief. Sulayun frowned. Why did the veil appear? Mom, please help me out. Just before he reached the door, there was a voice. I have seen this veil on Hongyi before. As soon as the handkerchief was taken out, Hongyi broke into a cold sweat. That was accidentally left behind when she went to the small warehouse to check whether the poisoned facial cream had been taken away. But she couldn't find it no matter what, so why did she appear in the small warehouse again? This veil is indeed a slave, but the slave did not poison the second lady. As soon as Hongyi stretched out her hand, the sharp-eyed Aunt Zhao saw it. What's the rash on your hands? Slave. Hongyi was startled and wanted to take back his hand, but it was too late. Her hand was grabbed by Aunt Zhao, and the red rash on it was visible to everyone. As soon as Sulayun saw this scene, he closed his eyes helplessly. Didn't she give the antidote to Hong Yi before? And what's going on with that veil? Hong Yi gritted his teeth and raised his eyes to look at Su Weiner. Old madam, it was the eldest lady who asked the slave to poison me. The second lady has rescued her family. If this is the case, then she will feel at ease even if she dies. What nonsense are you talking about? Su Weiner's eyes flashed and she looked at Hong Yi in disbelief. Hong Yi, I have no enmity with you, why do you want to frame me? The old lady has taken care of Su Weiner since she was a child. How could she not notice her strange reaction? She immediately said, you have poisoned me and framed the eldest lady. Aunt Zhao, take her down. Yes. Mama Zhao stepped forward to grab the red leaves, but Sulayun stopped her. Grandma, why don't you listen to Hong Yi's explanation? Now that he has reached this point, Sulayun will naturally not give up this opportunity easily. Su Weiner looked at Sulayun with a bit of grievance. Sister Yunur, do you also doubt me? Sister, you don't want to be misunderstood. If you don't find out about this matter, someone will always doubt you. These words made Su Weiner unable to refute for a moment. Grandma, what do you think? When the old lady was asked by Sulayun, she only hesitated for a moment. Hong Yi said quickly, Old madam, it was the eldest lady who threatened the slave girl with her family. The poison is still in the eldest lady's yard. If you don't believe it, the slave girl is willing to die to prove her will. After saying that, the red leaves were about to hit the stone pillar. Stop the person. The old lady looked at Hong Yi, who was stopped by someone, and slammed the crutch in her hand. One and two of you are determined to die, but you have the integrity, yet you still do such a thing. Old lady, calm down. Mama Zhao quickly patted the old lady's back, fearing that she would be too angry. Sulayun said softly, Grandma, why don't you send someone to search my sister's house? I believe that the business has nothing to do with my sister, but what Hong Yi said seems very credible. We must find out about this matter. Su Weiner glanced at Xue Huan. She had already asked Su Huan to deal with the previous poison, and Hong Yi probably didn't know about it yet. Xue Huan nodded, and Su Weiner calmed down and said, Grandma, please send someone to search Weiner's yard. Weiner is not afraid. As soon as these words were spoken, the old lady's hesitant expression relaxed. In that case, Sister Zhao, please take the people there. Mother-in-law, let Nanny Li go too. If there are more people, please go faster. Sun Jiaro suddenly spoke, and the old lady glanced at her without rejecting her. The sun is gradually setting. Soon, Grandma Zhao and Grandma Li came back with their people. It's just that the former's face is not pretty. The old lady's heart sank slightly when she saw Aunt Zhao's expression. Old lady. As soon as Aunt Zhao shouted, Aunt Li jumped in and said, Old madam, we found this in the eldest lady's yard. We need to ask Dr. Wu to take a look. Before he could stop him, Dr. Wu took the thing in Nanny Li's hand and said after smelling it, this is the poison of red Heiji. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 72. Chapter 72, Bullying the Superiors and Concealing the Truth from the Subordinates. Su Weiner clenched her hands tightly, her nails digging into her palms, and she didn't dare to make any unnecessary noise. Behind her, Xue Huan's face turned even pale. She had already disposed of the remaining poison according to the eldest lady's instructions. Why does it still appear? What exactly is going on? Sun Jiaro's cold gaze fell on Su Weiner, with no trace of pity in her eyes. Old madam, I want you to take care of the housework, so I won't stay. Physician Wu was already aware of the strangeness. He picked up his medicine box and nodded to the old lady and Sun Jiaro, don't worry, Madam Su, I will have the prescription delivered to your house. Mother Jiang, go and send Dr. Wu away. Sun Gro nodded and gave the order. Aunt Jiang took a step forward and said, Dr. Wu, please come this way. When royal physician Wu and Nanny Jiang left Huaziazu, Su Weiner said with a pale face, Mom, this is not my thing. It's not yours, so why is it in your yard? Sun Gro stood beside Suleun, holding her hand tighter and tighter. Suleun gently patted the back of Sun Gro's hand and said, Mom, don't worry. It's impossible for Wanner to do such a thing. The old lady was naturally on Su Wanner's side. She took the medicine bag in Nanny Zhao's hand and asked, whose house was this found from? I found it in the flowers outside the eldest lady's house. Mama Zhao returned hesitantly. When the servant found the medicine bag, she and Grandma Li were nearby, so there was no chance to hide it. Grandma, I really didn't do such a thing. I regard Sister Yuner as my biological sister. Why would I poison her? Someone must have framed me. Su Weiner held the handkerchief and wiped the tears from her eyes while redressing her grievance. But why was this poison found in your yard? The veil on Suleun's face had been put back on, and she looked at Su Weiner in confusion, as if waiting for an answer. Su Weiner covered up the hatred in her eyes and looked up again, only feeling aggrieved. Sister Yuner, don't you believe me too? Even if Hongye is a person in your yard, you shouldn't believe her so easily. Maybe that's the case. She left it in my yard. What Wanner said makes sense. The old lady frowned and looked at Hongye, who was kneeling aside. Hongye said quickly, I don't dare to tell lies. Please tell me, old lady. I will investigate this matter, but now. Grandma, Suleun shouted loudly, since this happened, why don't we find out now? Do you think that the fact that your granddaughter was poisoned is nothing? What are you talking about? Are you blaming me? The old lady's expression changed slightly. Grandma, how dare Yuner blame you? But do you know? Yuner has been tortured these past few days. At night, the stinging pain on her face made it difficult for Yuner to sleep. I thought this was a punishment from God, punishing me for the past 10 years. I haven't been at your knees to take care of you for 5 years. But now all this tells me that it's not a punishment, but someone deliberately trying to harm me. Why don't you make Yuner sad? In front of so many people, Suleun's eyes turned red and he looked at the old lady with disappointment. Like a child who is not loved. Suleun slowly walked towards the old lady, his voice choked with sobs. Grandma, Yuner knows that Sister Wanner has always been raised by your side, and you should love her more. But Yuner is also your granddaughter, why can't you have more pity on me? You don't want to see us sisters being suspicious of each other, right? You. The old lady felt confused. She was thinking of delaying it for a few more days, and then she would sell the red leaves and the matter would be over. But now, Suleun's words put her on a path where she couldn't make a choice. If she doesn't check it now and word gets out in the future, others will definitely say that she is partial. It would be even more troublesome if it spread to Sun Xiao's heirs. Yuner, of course Grandma also loves you. Grandma will definitely investigate this matter. The old lady suppressed the disgust in her heart at being led away. The expression on her face was full of love. She stretched out her hand to comfort Suleun. Mother Zhao, Mom, since Hongyi doesn't want to tell the truth, just do what you have to do. Yes. Mama Zhao nodded in agreement and immediately ordered the boy to get the torture tools. Suleun looked at the red leaves placed on the bench and couldn't help but look at the courtyard door. Why isn't brother here yet? Beat. After the words fell, the boy held up the board and dropped it on Hongyi unceremoniously. Ah! Hongya let out a wail and couldn't help but bite her lips. Bright red blood flowed from his lips. Suleun frowned, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw Suye walking towards the yard. Grandma, stop it. Suye was followed by 2 people, one big and one small. When Su Weiner saw them, her expression turned even worse. That is Hong Yi's family. These two people were really rescued by Suleun. What went wrong? King Guo stopped the boy who was about to continue to attack. At this time, Hong Yi was already breathing too much and not taking in enough air. Yeah, who are these two people? The old lady's eyes became deeper and deeper when she saw Xiao and Grandma Hong Yi. Elder sister. Xiao saw Hong Yi lying on the bench and rushed towards her, looking at her worriedly. Hong Yi forced a smile and said, "Sister, it's okay. Grandma, these two are Hong Yi's family members. They can prove that Su Weiner caught them to threaten Hong Yi." Su Ye looked at the old lady steadily, his face changed from his usual straightforwardness, and he became calmer. This appearance actually looks a bit like Sun Xiao. The old lady's heart was beating a little fast, as if something was gradually going beyond her expectation. Xiao and Grandma Hong Yi were called in front of the old lady. "Are you two relatives of Hong Yi?" Back to, old lady, "Yes, my name is Xiao, I am the younger brother of sister Hong Yi, and she is our grandmother." "Who is the person who captured you, is she here?" When asking this question, the old lady's brows did not relax. She glanced at Su Weiner's expression without any trace of worry. Xiao turned around and looked around, and his eyes suddenly stopped on Shui Huan. "I know this sister, she has visited me and Grandma several times." Shui Huan's legs shook and she suddenly fell to her knees. "This slave doesn't know anything." Su Weiner blinked and then remembered that she had never met Xiao at all. Everything was done by Shui Huan and people from other villages. She lowered her eyes and looked at Shui Huan, who was kneeling beside her. She bit her lower lip and said in disappointment, "Shui Huan, why are you doing this?" "Miss Shui Huan, I treat you very well." Su Weiner interrupted Shui Huan's words. She slowly took a step back and looked at Shui Huan in disbelief, as if she had been betrayed. The hem of her clothes slipped from Shui Huan's fingers. Had he not known Su Weiner's temperament well, Suleun would have believed what she looked like now. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 73. Chapter 73. The fish is hooked. No. Shui Huan knelt on the ground and just repeated this sentence. So the person who poisoned Yuner was Sui Huan. The old lady felt relieved. She was really worried that this matter had something to do with Su Weiner. Suleun raised an eyebrow, but he didn't expect Su Weiner to be so cautious. "Shui Huan, why did you poison Sister Yuner?" Su Weiner frowned and looked at Sui Huan, as if she wanted to seek justice for Suleun. Shui Huan met Su Weiner's gaze and started to tremble more and more. She knew that she couldn't escape today. "I hate the second young lady, she insulted me with words just because she was the master. I was the one who gave Hong Yi the poison, and I said it was the eldest lady's order. All of this was done by me." Even on the verge of death, Sui Huan would still throw dirty water on Suleun. Although it is normal for a master to beat and scold his servants, if such words are spread, it will affect the master's reputation. Especially for a woman, having a reputation of being harsh on her servants will make it difficult for her to interact among the noble ladies in the capital. Sun Gro knew this very well, and just as she was about to speak for Suleun, she saw the latter glance at her, his eyes full of comfort. "Shui Huan, you said I humiliated you with words." Suleun slowly walked up to Sui Huan, lowered his head and looked at her, with a coolness in his eyes. Shui Huan did not dare to look directly at Suleun and shrank back. "Grandma, Yuner doesn't dare to lie in front of you. When we were in Jingzhou, Shui Huan bluntly said that Yuner was not worthy of being the legitimate daughter of the Su family. She even said that you favored Sister Weiner. Yuner was so angry that she just said a few words to her. What Yuner did was not for herself, but for the reputation of the Su family. The granddaughter didn't tell any lies, and she didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. But if the grandmother really wants to blame the granddaughter is willing to accept the punishment. After Sulayun finished speaking, she was about to kneel down, but the old lady quickly held her back. "What are you doing? Grandma hasn't blamed you yet. It's a good thing that you think about the house," and Wanner was also deceived. Aunt Zhao, Shuehuan deceived the superiors and the inferiors, committed such a crime, and arrested the person get up. As for Hong Yi, although it was for his relatives, he did something wrong after all, and he locked people up first. Yes. Mammy Zhao led the servants to tie up Shuehuan. The old lady deceived the superiors and concealed the truth, and also made the final conclusion on the matter. Sulayun sneered in his heart. It seemed that even so, the old lady was determined to protect Suwainer. "Wanner, come here too." The old lady called Suwainer and put their hands together. "You are all good granddaughters of your grandmother. That's the end of this matter. You are still good sisters. You must help each other in the future." "Grandma, Wanner knows," Suwainer said, looking at Sulayun apologetically. "Sister Yunur, it was me who failed to take care of my servants, which caused you to be so hurt. Sister, I am here to apologize to you." Seeing that Suwainer was about to kneel down, Sulayun suddenly pulled her back and smiled. "You are the sister, how can you do this?" "I don't blame my sister for what happened to Suihuan, I can only blame herself." The two looked at each other and smiled, as if they had cleared up their past feud. But only the two of them knew the true meaning. The matter seemed to have come to an end, but Sulayun knew that the feud between her and Suwainer had just begun. As soon as she returned to the peony garden, Suwainer broke several expensive vases. Yuyeo and others did not dare to speak for fear of irritating Suwainer. "Yuyeo, you stay, the others get out." Suwainer stared at Yuyeo for a while, then said, "Shuehuan can't stay." Shuehuan knew too many things about her, and she couldn't give Shuehuan a chance to speak. Yuyeo was frightened for a while, but she didn't dare to disobey. "Miss. But the woodshed is guarded, and the servants can't get in." "Can't you get in?" Suwainer sneered and stared at Yuyeo. "I didn't give you a chance to refuse. If you can't get in, just find a way to get in. Otherwise, Shuehuan's fate will be yours too. This slave knows." Yuyeo didn't dare to hesitate and agreed quickly. Suwainer stared at her for a while, then suddenly stood up and said, "Go get the hairpin from the first layer of my dressing box." "Yes." Yuyeo was still a little panicked. Her hand that took out the hairpin was trembling and she almost lost it. Suwainer put the hairpin into a brocade box, got up and took Yuyeo to the yard where Lu Shuiying currently lives. "Cousin Shuiying." Lu Shuiying saw Suwainer coming and greeted her enthusiastically. "Why are Sister Wanner here? I've heard about Kea Huaziazu." "Sister Wanner, you are so pitiful that you let a maid trick you into it. This is no-brainer." Suwainer cursed secretly in her heart, with a smile on her face. "Stop talking about these things, I'm here to give you a gift, Cousin Shuiying." "Gift?" Lu Shuiying's eyes lit up as soon as she heard the gift. When the brocade box was opened, the expression on her face became even more joyful. "Is this for me? Cousin Shuiying doesn't know something. I heard that King Jin will also come to Mrs. Li's birthday banquet in a few days. Cousin, if you bring this hairpin then, King Jin will definitely notice you." Suwainer explained with a smile, and Lu Shuiying became more and more excited. "Really? Prince Jin will go? Sister Wanner, what do you think I should wear then?" Lu Shuiying pulled Suwainer and asked her to help her take a look. However, she saw that the smile on Suwainer's face faded a bit. "Cousin Shuiying, it's just that you saw it last time." Prince Jin seemed to have a more favorable impression of Sister Yunur. "Sulayun," Lu Shuiying frowned, with dissatisfaction in her eyes. "Her face is probably off-putting to King Jin." "Cousin, you can't say that. What if King Jin is not the kind of person who looks at his appearance?" Lu Shuiying was stunned and looked at Su Weiner anxiously. If this is the case, what should I do? The fish is hooked. Su Weiner's eyes flashed with a smile, and she said hesitantly, Cousin Shuiying, some things always depend on fate. Sister Weiner, I know you have a way. Facing Lu Shuiying's expectant gaze, Su Weiner seemed to be convinced and sighed, you may not know it when you just came back. Sister Yuner is very good at embroidery. This time, perhaps the birthday gift prepared for Mrs. Li is embroidery. If Sister Yuner is praised by Mrs. Li, I'm afraid she will attract the favor of King Jin even more. Sister Weiner, what do you mean? Lu Shuiying was still a little confused, and Su Weiner felt annoyed. Why did she choose Lu Shuiying? That day she saw that Lu Shuiying had a crush on Prince Jin, so she deliberately used the excuse that she could help her to get Lu Shuiying to side with her. But this Lu Shuiying had a bad temper and a bad mind, she said so clearly. I still don't understand. If Sister Yuner hadn't given her a birthday gift. Su Weiner didn't say anything further, but Lu Shuiying suddenly realized, Sister Weiner, I understand. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 74. Chapter 74 The Maid's Actions. Kaya Huaziazu. Sulayun applied the antidote he had made previously to his face. He only waited for a moment before the antidote took effect. Looking at the red rash on Sulayun's face that was gradually fading, Grandma Zhang became a little nervous. Miss, the effect of this medicine works so quickly, will there be any side effects? Don't worry, Mama, I made some adjustments to the original antidote and removed some excess impurities, so the effect will be better than before. Most of the red rash on his face has faded away. Sulayun did not continue to apply it, but put on the veil again. In the bronze mirror, the lotus heart comes in from outside the house. How is Hong Yi's injury? Miss, my servant has already given Hong Yi medicine, and asked the nun in charge to pay more attention to her condition. As long as she doesn't have a fever tonight, she'll be fine. Sulayun nodded, I didn't think carefully about this matter. Where did that veil come from? Hong Yi said that she sneaked into the small warehouse one night to check on the condition of the facial creams and accidentally lost the handkerchief, but she went to look for it later and couldn't find it. She didn't know why it appeared in the small warehouse. Does she remember when it was? It's the days after the plum blossom banquet. In those days, Han Zheng stayed in Kaya Huaziazu. Thinking of this person, Sulayun shook his head suspiciously. If he did this, what was his purpose? She couldn't figure it out at the moment, and she didn't think about it. In 2 days' time, Mrs. Li's birthday party would be held, and the most important thing at hand was that she had to finish the embroidery before then. At night, there was a knock on the door. Shui Huan shuddered and saw the figure on the door and window. She stood up in panic and leaned against the door. It's me. Yuyeo, did the eldest lady ask you to save me? Shui Huan's voice was trembling, the room was cold and damp, and she didn't even have a single piece of clothing to keep out the cold. The lock on the door was still hanging. Yuyeo pushed open a small gap and threw a small porcelain bottle in. The eldest lady asked me to bring you flowers. If you are sensible, the eldest lady will take good care of your family for you. Yuyeo, don't leave. Seeing the figure disappear, Shui Huan slammed on the doorframe, but it had no effect. She leaned against the doorframe and slid down, her eyes scanning the small porcelain bottle. There was only one brown pill in the porcelain bottle. Shui Huan stretched out her hand and poured out the brown pill. After a moment, she raised her head and swallowed it. Early the next morning, Lian Xian hurriedly entered the room and said, Miss, Sui Huan committed suicide. Sulayun paused slightly with the needlework in his hand. He didn't feel surprised, but felt that it should be like this. She is well aware of Su Weiner's cruelty. She must know that even if the nanny who has been with Su Weiner for many years has a negative impact on Su Weiner, Su Wainer will get rid of her without mercy. How are the red leaves doing? Suleun didn't ask anything about Sui Huan. Since the person was dead, it was useless to ask more questions. Lian Xian's tone was somewhat relaxed. Hong Yi didn't have a fever last night. Once the injury heals, he should be fine. Well, as for the rest of the matter, my mother and brother will make arrangements. After Suleun finished speaking, his mind returned to embroidery. Until the eve of Mrs. Li's birthday party, Suleun was still busy. Miss, it's time for you to rest. Lian Xian looked at Suleun's red eyes and felt worried. Suleun waved his hand and said, there is still one last thing to do. If you are tired, go and rest first. I'm not tired, I'd better wait for you. Seeing this, Lian Xian did not try to persuade her anymore, but walked under the candle and carefully cut off a section of the burned wick. The candle light was a little brighter. After a while, Suleun cut off the last section of thread and finally completed the embroidery. Under the candle light, Lian Xian's eyes were attracted by the embroidery in Suleun's hand. Miss, is this double-sided embroidery? Lian Xian looked at Suleun in surprise. When did the young lady learn to embroider on both sides? Even she has never learned it? It was in the book you showed me earlier. I read it for a few days and tried it randomly. Suleun arranged the embroidery and put it into the wooden box prepared earlier. She has no good impression of Li Mansion and the Li family for a long time. This kind of embroidery is not so much prepared for Mrs. Li as it is prepared for herself. Hope she won't be disappointed. The next day, at the gate of Su Mansion, people were carrying things to the carriage. Su Waner leaned beside the old lady, looked around, and asked doubtfully, isn't Sister Yuner here yet? As soon as she finished speaking, Suleun's figure appeared at the door, with the veil still on her face. Grandma, my granddaughter is late. Suleun quickly walked to the old lady's side. In fact, she did get up late today. Yesterday, in order to catch up on the embroidery work, she only slept for less than 2 hours, and it was Grandma Zhang who woke her up. The old lady looked at the green color under her eyes and said in a deep tone, let's forget it for today. In the future, we must pay attention to it. How unbecoming a daughter-in-law of the Marquis is to make herself look like someone who goes to catch a thief at night. Grandma taught me, and my granddaughter must remember it. Suleun responded respectfully. Okay, everyone, get in the car, your father and the others must be arriving soon. The old lady gave the order, and everyone did not dare to hesitate and got on the carriage one after another. A maid looked around carefully, saw that no one was paying attention and quickly got into the carriage, then got out, and then got into the carriage in front. Got it? Lu Shuiying asked immediately as soon as she saw King Liu's figure. King Liu took out the thing from his sleeve and said, second miss, it's what you want. It was surprisingly the embroidery prepared by Suleun. Lu Shuiying took out a pair of scissors from the small cabinet on the side and raised her hand to cut it off. The next second, her eyes were fixed and the movements of her hands stopped. She had an idea in her mind. Li Mansion is close to the imperial city. Starting from Su Mansion, we slowly arrived at the place for nearly 2/4 of an hour. There are many carriages parked outside the Li Mansion, all of which are people who come to celebrate their birthdays. Grandma, be careful. Su Wainer carefully helped Mrs. Su get out of the same carriage. Behind her, Suleun also got off the carriage. The carriage behind them is the sisters Lu Suya and Lu Shuiying. The sharp-eyed housekeeper of the Li Mansion had already seen the Su family's carriage and immediately came forward with his servant. Mrs. Su, please come in quickly. The old lady smiled and was supported by Su Wainer as she walked towards Li's mansion. As soon as he entered Li Mansion, he saw Li Rui walking this way. When he saw Su Wainer, his steps were a little faster. Sister Wainer, you are here. Brother Rui. Su Wainer smiled implicitly and glanced at the old lady beside her. The old lady was happy to see the result, and her expression was somewhat satisfied when she saw the two of them like this. Li Rui seemed to have just seen the old lady and said quickly, "Mrs. Su, it's great that you can come. Grandma just mentioned you and asked me to take you to her yard if I see you. That would be troublesome." Li Rui led several people from the Su family to Mrs. Li's yard. Suleun was standing behind, and he unexpectedly heard Lu Sui's voice, "Aren't you angry?" End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 75. Chapter 75, A Match Made in Heaven. My cousin asked such a meaningless question again. Suleun smiled helplessly and said in a teasing tone, "Why should I be angry? Li Rui and Su Weiner have been sweethearts since childhood. Don't you think they are a perfect match? But you are the one who is really engaged to Li Rui." Lu Suia looked at Suleun in confusion. Li Rui is the grandson of Li Lao Hanlin and the eldest son of the Li family. He has a handsome appearance and extraordinary knowledge. He is also one of the candidates to win the first prize in the next spring. Suleun wants to give it to Su Weiner in vain? Suleun shook his head and said with a smile, "My cousin is wrong. Su Weiner is the eldest daughter of the Su family. This engagement naturally belongs to her." She was very curious. If she did not marry Li Rui this time, how would Su Weiner avoid the engagement and become King Yu? Suleun's eyes were full of interest, but when his eyes fell on the yard in front, the smile gradually faded. Mrs. Li's yard has arrived. "Grandma, Mrs. Su and Weiner are here." Li Rui shouted and heard a burst of cheerful footsteps. A girl in a pink jacket came out of the house. "Sister Weiner is here." "Min Min." Su Weiner smiled when she saw the person coming and hugged him. Li Min Min pouted and said, "Sister Weiner, you haven't come to see Min Min for a long time." "Didn't I come today?" Su Weiner stretched out her hand to pull Li Min Min and pointed at Lu Shuiying beside her. "This is Lu Shuiying, my cousin, the same age as you." "Hello." Lu Shuiying looked at Li Min Min's dress and jewelry. They were not very luxurious, and her smile faded a bit. It seems that this Li mansion is nothing more than this. Li Min Min didn't notice Lu Shuiying's emotions, but still greeted her with a smile. "Hello, I'll call you Shuiying from now on." After saying that, she looked behind Su Weiner again. Suleun and Lu Suia were standing there. "Sister Weiner, who are those two?" "This is Suleun, my sister. She just came back from Jingzhou recently." "That is Lu Suia, Shuiying's sister." As she spoke, Su Weiner took a few steps closer to Suleun, as if she wanted to reach out and pull her. "Sister Yuner, let me introduce you to her. This is Li Min Min, Brother Rui's biological sister. You will have many opportunities to get along with her in the future." "Sister Weiner, are you wrong? The person who has more opportunities to get along with Miss Li should be you." Suleun avoided Su Weiner's hand and spoke in a joking tone. Su Weiner's eyes flickered, but she kept a smile on her face. "Sister Yuner, do you blame me?" "Sister, you and Mr. Li Rui are a talented and beautiful couple. I think Miss Li thinks so too, right?" "Yes, Sister Weiner, don't worry, your marriage to your brother will definitely not be snatched away by others." Li Min Min glanced at Suleun. Was she the second young lady of the Su family? "It seems to be different from what my brother said." Suleun met Li Min Min's appraising gaze and smiled. In her previous life, Li Min Min often scolded her for ruining Su Weiner and Li Rui's marriage. A group of people entered Mrs. Li's yard. In the main hall, Mrs. Li is sitting on the main seat. "Sister, I'm late." As soon as Mrs. Su saw Mrs. Li, a smile immediately appeared on her face. "By the way, this is just the right time. Come, please take a seat for Mrs. Su," Mrs. Li said, then looked at the young people following behind. "We haven't seen each other for a long time. Sit in the house for a while and let Rui take you kids for a walk outside." "Of course, that's good." Mrs. Su nodded and waved to Su Wan'er. Li Rui also followed Su Wan'er and walked over. Wan'er would like to say hello to Mrs. Li. You're a pretty good kid, didn't you always call me Grandma Li in the past? Mrs. Li looked at Su Wan'er with a smile in her eyes. The latter blinked and smiled restrainedly, Grandma Li. That's right, Rui-er, you take Wan'er and the others for a walk outside, and I'll chat with your Grandma Su in the house. Yes, Grandma. Li Rui led several people out of the yard. Inside the house, it became quiet again. That girl with the veil is Suleun, right? Seeing that the person was gone, Mrs. Li picked up the teacup and took a sip of hot tea before arriving slowly. The expression on Mrs. Su's face also faded. Sister, you also see Li Rui's feelings for Wan'er. If he changes the marriage at will, I'm afraid he will break up the lovers. What are you talking about? Of course, the only one who is worthy of Rui'er is Wan'er. Not everyone can come in through the door of my Li family. Mrs. Li smiled at Mrs. Su, and the atmosphere between the two relaxed. Outside the hospital, Li Rui walked beside Su Wan'er, his eyes never leaving each other's side. Brother Rui, stop staring at me, Sister Yuner is still here. Su Wan'er said, looking at Suleun with some worry. He saw that Suleun was chatting with Lu Suya and did not look at them at all. Wan'er, you are just too kind. Li Rui frowned, ignore Suleun, we have an engagement, she can't stop us. But Brother Rui, I shouldn't take away this marriage that originally belonged to Sister Yuner. Su Wan'er looked troubled, which made Li Rui feel distressed. Wan'er, don't worry, I will definitely handle this matter. Li Rui was comforted and looked at Suleun, feeling dissatisfied in his heart. Does Suleun think that by deliberately ignoring him, he can get his attention? Because of the cold weather, the banquet was placed in the hall. It is separated by a screen and divided into two places. On one side is to entertain the male guests, and on the other side is to entertain the female family members. Suleun didn't want to stay with Li Rui and Su Wan'er, so he came directly to the banquet place. In order to be quiet, I found a seat in the corner and sat down. Sister Yuner. Looking at Sun Sheng, Suleun's face was filled with joy. Sister Zhao, you are here too. The person who came was none other than Zhao Minjian. She smiled heartily and said, Sister Yuner, you don't mind if I sit with you, right? Of course not. It's been a long time since we last met, Sister Yuner, Zhao Minjian said, looking unnaturally towards the male guest. Suleun followed her line of sight, but saw nothing. It's just that I haven't been able to get together with my sister. As you said, the Chinese New Year is approaching, so I'm afraid we might have a chance to meet. It seemed that he couldn't find what he was looking for. Zhao Minjian withdrew his gaze and then focused on Suleun. Why is Sister Yuner wearing a veil? I was allergic to something I didn't know I ate before, so I got a rash on my face. As he was speaking, an arrogant voice sounded. Are you the second young lady that the Su family just found? Suleun and Zhao Minjian looked up. The woman in front of them was dressed in red and had a whip on her waist. She looked particularly heroic. I heard that you fell into the water and were rescued by His Highness King Jin, is it true? The woman's eyes were filled with displeasure towards Suleun, and her hands fell on her waist, ready to move. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 76. Chapter 76 Princess Yongping. Suleun thought for a moment and then said, Prince Jin really saved my life. Sister Yuner, be careful. Zhao Minjian took Suleun's hand, and the two quickly stood up when they heard a crisp crack of a whip. Suleun looked back and saw that the whip in the woman's hand had been slowly pulled back. Princess Yongping, do you know what you are doing? Zhao Minjian checked to make sure that Sulayun was not injured, and then looked at Princess Yongping angrily. Princess Yongping flicked the whip in her hand and said loudly, "Zhao Minjian, don't think that because you are from the Zhao family, I will be afraid of you. This country-born woman has no shame herself. She uses that method to seduce men. I need to teach her a lesson." The sound of the whip just now attracted everyone's attention. After hearing Princess Yongping's words, many people's eyes fell on Sulayun's face. As if trying to see through Sulayun. "What are you talking about? Sister Yunar is not that kind of person." Although she had only met him twice, Zhao Minjian felt that Sulayun was definitely not the kind of person Princess Yongping said she was. She believed in Sulayun. Sulayun looked at Zhao Minjian protecting her back, and her heart was touched. She held Zhao Minjian's hand and pulled him away. "Sister Minjian, let me solve this matter." She looked at Princess Yongping with a little coldness in her eyes. That whip just now, if Zhao Minjian had not pulled her away, would have landed directly on her face. Even if she doesn't care about her appearance, it doesn't mean she will be bullied at will. "Princess Yongping, I don't know what the daughter of the common people has done to offend you, please let me know. You know what you have done." Princess Yongping looked Sulayun up and down and snorted softly. Sulayun's tone remained calm. Even if the prisoner is being punished, he still has the qualifications to know the crime he committed. If the princess wants to convict a civilian girl, she should also tell the crime. "You do know how to talk." Princess Yongping glanced at Sulayun strangely. "Okay, then let me tell you, you deliberately fell into the water to hook up with Prince Jin. This is your crime. So, has the princess found evidence to convict the daughter?" "What?" Princess Yongping looked puzzled. Sulayun chuckled and said, "The daughter of the people happened to be reading the laws of our dynasty these days. The law says that only evidence can prove the guilt. The princess can't produce evidence. Can the daughter of the people guess that the princess is here, deliberately framed a civilian girl? This princess framed you. What do you have to deserve me to do this? Sulayun, a country-born person like you just likes to spend all your efforts to gain wealth. Am I wrong?" Princess Yongping's heartbeat was a little fast. She always felt that the woman in front of her didn't look like she was from the countryside at all. Sulayun met the appraising gaze of Princess Yongping and said, "Neither humble nor arrogant, Princess, growing up in the countryside is not a choice for ordinary women. But there are so many people in the world, and not everyone is as lucky as you, Princess, to be born in a royal palace. Don't worry about your livelihood. What you say will send chills to all the country people in the world. You." Princess Yongping couldn't say anything to refute for a moment, so she was so angry that she swung the whip in her hand and flew towards Sulayun. Just as he was about to fall on Sulayun, a figure stopped in front of him. The whip was also caught. His Royal Highness King Jin. When Princess Yongping saw the person coming, her face turned pale and she let go of her hand in a panic. The whip fell to the ground. Sulayun looked at the man standing in front of him and suddenly came back to his senses. "Your Highness, are you okay?" Xiao Shenjiao spread his hands, and there were no wounds on his palms. "Msu is worried." Facing Xiao Shenjiao's smiling eyes, Sulayun breathed a sigh of relief, then turned away his face. "Thank you, Your Highness, for saving me." Although, she had just planned to hide away. But in the end, he accepted the other party's feelings. Xiao Shenjiao looked at Princess Yongping and said in a colder voice, "Today is Mrs. Li's birthday party. If you want to make trouble, just go back to your house and make trouble." "Okay, Yongping." Princess Anil came from the side and looked at Princess Yongping's two maids. "I haven't sent you princess back to rest yet." The two maids hurriedly stepped forward. Princess Yongping seemed to be hurt by Xiao Shenjiao's expression, and was helped out by the maid without any reaction. "Princess Anil." Sulayun and Zhao Minjian met with Princess Anil. Everyone, get up. Princess Anil glanced at Sulayun and said, I wonder if I can say a few words to Miss Su'er. Zhao Minjian glanced at the two of them and said, Princess, please. Then take a few steps back. Princess Anil stood beside Sulayun and said softly, the pot of plum blossoms that Miss Su'er sent last time may have been put in something and has withered. What Princess Anil said was naturally not the plum blossom that Sulayun rescued, but the plum blossom that Suwainer found. Sulayun looked into Princess Anil's clear eyes and realized that the other party was kindly reminding her. Thank you, Princess, for informing me. Miss Su'er, you're welcome. After all, you gave me such a useful prescription. Princess Anil likes to grow flowers and grass. Sulayun sent the prescription for reviving plum blossoms to the princess's mansion. Now many flowers and plants have been saved, so Princess Anil also likes Sulayun more and more. After learning that King Jin and Princess Anil were coming, Mrs. Li hurried over. Also followed by Li Rui and Suwainer. It's really a great blessing for the Li family to have Prince Jin and Princess Anil come. The smile on Mrs. Li's face was particularly sincere. Xiao Shenjiao nodded slightly and said, Father knows that today is Mrs. Li's birthday banquet, so he asked Anil and I to come and give Mrs. Li a birthday gift. Soon, several boys came in carrying several large boxes of things. Li Laohanlin was once the emperor's teacher, and the current emperor is his student, so naturally he would not express his feelings. Xiao Shenjiao was with the male guests, together with Li Laohanlin. As for the female relatives, Princess Anil was placed in the main seat, with Mrs. Li on her side. Since the birthday boy has arrived, the birthday banquet will naturally start. Mrs. Li doesn't like singing and dancing performances, so at the banquet, apart from the sound of musicians playing, the only sound left was the sound of people talking. Sister Minjian, who is Princess Yongping. Sulayun always felt that it sounded familiar, but couldn't remember it for the moment. Zhao Minjian explained, Princess Yongping is the daughter of King Anan. When King Anan passed away, Princess Yongping was only 5 years old. The Queen Mother took pity on Princess Yongping and took her into the palace to take care of her. Therefore, her temperament is better than that of the princess. And arrogant. It turned out to be her. With this explanation, Sulayun finally remembered who Princess Yongping was. The father of King Anan and the late emperor were close friends. The late emperor specially gave him the title of King Anan and assigned a fief to King Anan's father. Later, King Anan inherited his father's name and fief. But many years ago, King Anan and Princess Anan were killed on their way back to Beijing. Princess Yongping was the only master left in the Anan palace. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 77. Chapter 77 Naughty Joke. In the previous life, after the death of King Jin, Princess Yongping returned to her fiefdom and never came to the capital again. Sulayun sighed, it seemed that she had incurred a peach blossom debt. The dishes were on the table. Sulayun and Zhao Minjian were eating and talking when they heard a voice. Mrs. Li, this junior Lu Shuiying has prepared a gift for you and hopes to give it to you personally. Lu Shuiying stood up and glanced at Sulayun intentionally or unintentionally while speaking. She had seen the scene when Princess Yongping made things difficult for Sulayun, and when King Jin rescued Sulayun, she also did not miss it. Now my heart is full of anger. Why can someone like Sulayun be appreciated by King Jin? She wanted to see what Sulayun would do to attract King Jin after today. Sulayun noticed Lu Shuiying's gaze and frowned slightly. She knew that her cousin's temperament was pampered by Suchangjiang. It seemed like a child's nature, but in fact it was arrogant and willful. If she made her unhappy, it would make people uneasy. In her previous life, Lu Shuiying looked down on her and helped Suwaner design several designs for her. Now, what should we do? Mrs. Li nodded. Lu Shuiying took a box from King Liu's hand, opened it and took out an embroidery piece. Lu Shuiying slowly spread out the embroidery, and Mrs. Li's eyes lit up. Hope you'll like it? Bring it up and let me see. After getting the embroidery, when Mrs. Li touched the back, she was startled again and quickly turned it over. It turned out to be another pattern. This is actually double-sided embroidery, which is really good. Sulayun's face darkened. She was a little far away and couldn't see clearly. She only vaguely felt that the embroidery looked familiar. Now that she heard Mrs. Li's words, she felt even more sure. Lu Shuiying actually took away her embroidery. As long as the old lady likes it, Lu Shuiying said, and then said casually, I heard that Sister Yuner has also prepared embroidery, why don't you take it out too and let the old lady take a look? Lu Shuiying looked at Sulayun, her face still looked like a good sister, but the malice in her eyes was not concealed. Okay. Sulayun responded with a smile. Soon, Lian Xian brought the small wooden box over, her expression not good looking. She shook her head at Sulayun. There was nothing in the wooden box. Sulayun stepped forward, placed the small wooden box on the ground, and then opened the wooden box in front of everyone. The empty wooden box was exposed to everyone's eyes. Empty. What's going on? Didn't Miss Su'er do it on purpose? Mrs. Su's face dropped. Yuner, what on earth is going on? Grandma, why don't you ask your good granddaughter? Sulayun looked at Lu Shuiying coldly, hoping that Lu Shuiying could also bear the consequences of embarrassing her at Mrs. Li's birthday party. Lu Shuiying was not afraid. Sister Yuner, your birthday gift is missing, why do you ask me? Then can you explain to me why my birthday gift appears at your place? Sister Yuner, what are you talking about? That's the embroidery I specially asked for, how could it be yours? Lu Shuiying was still pretending to be stupid. She was sure that Sulayun had no way to explain all this. And since she can produce embroidery, she is naturally more credible than Sulayun without it. Lu Shuiying, in front of so many people, I just want to ask you, who does that embroidery belong to? Sulayun lost his patience, but still gave Lu Shuiying a chance. It is better to end things now than later. What's more, it doesn't look good for the sisters to make trouble in other people's houses. Even if she doesn't think about the Su family, she still has to think about her mother. If she and Lu Shuiying have a bad relationship, it will become a problem between Su Changjing and Sun Gro. Lu Shuiying suddenly felt a bit chilly when she met Sulayun's cold eyes, and her hands became stiff for a moment. She gritted her teeth and said firmly, I found that. Okay, if you don't want to tell the truth, let me ask you, since you found it, you should know what the pattern on it is, right? What? Lu Shuiying was startled. She only remembered that the pattern on it was very beautiful and seemed to be some kind of animal, but she had never seen it before. Seeing that she couldn't answer, Sulayun continued, that's called finless porpoise, an animal unique to Jingzhou. Because of the smile on its face, everyone in Jingzhou knows it. I've never been to Jingzhou, how do I know? When Lu Shuiying said this, she always felt a little unsure. She felt that things seemed to be going badly. Yes, you have never been to Jingzhou, so of course you have never seen finless porpoises. Sulayun stepped forward and approached Mrs. Li, old madam, can you show me the embroidery? Mrs. Li had already noticed the strangeness, her eyes flicked back and forth between Sulayun and Lu Shuiying, and then handed the embroidery to the nanny on the side. The embroidery was lifted up by the nanny, and everyone finally saw the true face of the embroidery. I saw two smiling animals on the embroidery, which were finless porpoises. I saw it once when I was in Jingzhou, and it was indeed a finless porpoise. These two finless porpoises look just like real ones. I don't know who embroidered them. Just as Sulayun was about to pick up a corner, Lu Shuiying called out to her. What are you up to? Prove that this embroidery was embroidered by me. Sulayun picked up a corner, and the shape of a cloud was vaguely visible on it. But everyone did not pay attention. Instead, they looked at Suleun in surprise. She said she embroidered it? Didn't you say that you just brought it back from Jingzhou? How can you learn this embroidery? Suleun, stop lying. You just came back. How can you embroider? Can you embroider so well? Lu Shuiying thought she had grasped the handle and became complacent. But he didn't see Mrsu and Suwaner's expressions change. They all remembered the incident about the sachet that day. Suleun can really embroider such vivid embroidery. From the moment Lu Shuiying spoke, Suwaner felt that something was wrong. She had previously intended for Lu Shuiying to directly destroy Suleun's birthday gift, but she didn't expect that this fool would take Suleun's birthday gift as his own. How stupid! Mrsu knew that if Suleun continued talking, she might cause something to happen to Lu Shuiying. She didn't care much and said, "Sister, it seems that Shuiying and Leun made a joke to you. This embroidery is indeed Leun sewed it himself. I think these two children deliberately caused such a fuss." Even though Mrs. Li couldn't understand the meaning of Mrsu's words, she nodded and said, "These two children are very naughty, you have to discipline them well. I like Miss Su's gift very much. Grandma, I..." Lu Shuiying was still talking, but Suwaner grabbed her. "Cousin Shuiying, if you continue to joke, it won't be funny." Looking at the scene in front of him, Suleun laughed, met Mrsu's warning eyes, and said, "As long as Mrs. Li likes this gift." End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 78. Chapter 78. Every word is from the heart. Seeing that Suleun was familiar with the situation, Mrsu's face looked a little better. I don't know when taking away someone else's birthday gift is considered a joke. Princess Anil took a sip of tea and arrived slowly. As soon as these words came out, the female relatives fell silent one after another. Even Mrsu paled slightly. I made Princess Anil laugh. Why don't Shuiying apologize to everyone? Mrsu made a mistake. The person who should apologize to Miss Lu is Miss Su. I don't. Lu Shuiying would not be willing to apologize to Suleun when she heard that she wanted to apologize. How could she apologize to a woman who grew up in the countryside? Suwaner didn't care about anything else and tugged Lu Shuiying's arm hard. "Cousin Shuiying, you should apologize to Sister Yunur. Don't make such jokes again in the future." This idiot, does he even want to refute what the princess said? She wanted the entire Su family to pay for her life. "Shuiying, you still haven't apologized to Yunur." Mrsu's voice was also a little cold, but her eyes passed over Princess Anil, and she was thinking for a while. Why did Princess Anil speak out to help Suleun? Is it possible that King Jin really wants to marry Suleun? Even her always loving grandmother looked like this. Lu Shuiying suddenly realized that she seemed to have done something stupid. She looked at Suleun, touched her upper and lower lips, and whispered, "Sister Yunur, Shuiying was wrong. The sound is so soft that if you don't listen carefully, you can't hear it clearly." Suleun had a smile in his eyes and asked puzzledly, "What did cousin Shuiying say?" "I..." As soon as Lu Shuiying saw Suleun's expression, she knew that she deliberately wanted to laugh at her, but Princess Anil was still looking at her. She could only take a deep breath and shouted, "Sister Yunur, Shuiying is wrong, no Shuiying apologizes to you for doing such a thing." After saying this, Lu Shuiying's face turned pale. After all, she was young and thin-skinned. She raised her skirt and ran out in embarrassment. "Don't follow up yet." Mrsu glared at her, and Lu Shuiying's two maids quickly chased after her. Suwaner looked worried and asked, "Grandma, granddaughter, please go and have a look too." "Nothing will happen, just sit down." After Mrsu finished speaking, she looked at Mrs. Li and Princess Anil, it was my lax discipline that made the princess and my sister laugh. Mrs. Su, there is no need to blame yourself. I think you taught Miss Su well. This is a family matter of the Su family, and Princess Anil should not interfere with it, but in front of so many people, Mrs. Su allowed her granddaughter to be bullied, which makes people feel chilling. Princess Anil didn't know what she thought of, and her expression was a little cold. Mrs. Lee knew very well that Princess Anil's words were deliberately sarcastic, so she quickly smoothed things over and said, "You are too polite. The fights between these children are difficult to control. Just pay more attention in the future." Back to his seat, the smile on Sulayun's face gradually faded. Zhao Minjian looked at Sulayun worriedly. "Sister Yunur, are you okay?" Although she is good at wielding swords and guns, it is not impossible to see that it was Lu Shuiying who deliberately took away Sister Yunur's birthday gift, hoping to see Sister Yunur make a fool of herself. If Sister Yunur didn't react, once this incident spread, it would definitely be a big blow to the woman's reputation. Fine. Sulayun saw the worry in Zhao Minjian's eyes and shook his head. Then he raised his glass in the direction of Princess Anil, who also raised the glass. The two of them held glasses from a distance, feeling a bit sympathetic to each other. This incident seemed like an episode, and soon the banquet became lively again. It was past half-time, and the banquet finally ended. On the carriage back home, Sulayun leaned on a soft pillow and closed his eyes to meditate. I'm afraid there might be something waiting for her when she returns to the Su mansion. As soon as she got off the carriage, Su Changjing stood at the door with Lu Shuiying in her arms. Both mother and daughter had the same aggrieved look on their faces. Mother Su Changjing pulled Lu Shuiying forward. "You also know Shuiying's temperament, and she didn't do this on purpose. And, the embroidery was neatly placed in the wooden box. If it wasn't intentional, could it be that my cousin opened the wooden box in a dream and took the things away?" Su Ye did not give Su Changjing and Lu Shuiying any face and stood beside Sulayun. At the banquet, he was dragged to drink. Although he noticed the situation on the female side, he only found out what happened later, otherwise he would not have allowed others to bully his sister. "You." Su Changjing's expression froze and she didn't know what to say. The old lady glanced at Su Ye and Sulayun. The brother and sister had only gotten along so well for so many days. Could it be that they were really related by blood? "Okay, if you have something to do, we can talk about it inside the house. Are you making trouble in front of the house because you are afraid that others will not see enough jokes?" the old lady said with a cold face. "Yunur, Shuiying, you follow me back to the courtyard. Everyone else should go back first." Su Ye glanced at Sulayun and saw her nodding, so he didn't follow her. Arrived at the old lady's yard. As soon as she entered the room, the old lady knocked the crutch in her hand hard. "You all kneel down." Lu Shuiying quickly knelt on the ground and saw Sulayun standing upright beside her. The old lady caught a glimpse of Sulayun's movements and frowned slightly. "Why don't you kneel down?" "Grandma, Yunur is not wrong in this matter, why do you have to kneel down?" Meeting Sulayun's determined gaze, the old lady frowned even more tightly and said, "Both of you are at fault in this matter." "Grandma, may I ask my granddaughter what she did wrong?" Sulayun calmly met the old lady's appraising gaze, without flinching at all. In the Su mansion, no one has ever dared to question the old lady like this. Thinking of what happened at the banquet, the old lady felt a little angry. What happened at the banquet today will definitely bring shame to our Su mansion. "You still think you are right?" "Grandma, my granddaughter doesn't understand what you are saying. The person who stole my birthday gift was Lu Shuiying. The person who deliberately mocked and framed me at the banquet was also Lu Shuiying. The only person who brought shame to the Su family should be Lu Shuiying. At the same time, what does my granddaughter have to do with it? Or is it my granddaughter's fault that she didn't take the initiative to give the embroidery to Lu Shuiying, and that she didn't resist it, so that others could have a reason to humiliate me and call me a woman who talks nonsense?" Sulayun said, his voice a little hoarse. It was as if she had returned to her previous life. She was also framed by Suwainer and Lu Shuiying, but she couldn't speak out. She could only accept this black spot, and people poked her spine wherever she went. Grandma, I am also your granddaughter? Why can't you treat everyone equally? Does it mean that my granddaughter deserves to be framed just because she grew up in Jingzhou and was not raised by you? Sulayun spoke from the bottom of her heart. This was also the first thing she asked the old lady in her previous life. Even if the old lady is so kind to Suwainer, who is not related by blood, why can't she be given a little kindness? Looking at the old lady, she realized that the answer to this question was no longer important. She has no expectations anymore. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 79. Chapter 79 a little doubtful. The old lady's breath was stagnant, and she was left speechless by Sulayun's question. She didn't know her partiality, but Sulayun exposed it mercilessly, and she felt a little guilty for no reason. Grandma is confused. The old lady slowly stepped forward, took Sulayun's hand, her face became more loving, and said, "Girl Yun, Grandma apologizes to you." Grandma. Sulayun's eyes were slightly red, and he seemed a little touched, but his heart didn't have much ups and downs. She knew that the old lady was only temporarily moved by her emotions, and because of the Sun family behind her, the old lady said these words. If the Sun family is gone, no matter how much she says, it won't have any effect. Old Zhao, bring me the jade bracelet from my room. Yes, old lady. Mammy Zhao quickly brought a brocade box, which contained a jade bracelet with the same body. The old lady took the jade bracelet and gently put it on Sulayun. Sulayun declined, "Grandma, this is too valuable. My granddaughter cannot accept it." "You have been wrong today, just keep this jade bracelet." The old lady glanced at Lu Shuiying, who was still kneeling, and said calmly, "Don't worry, Grandma will discipline Shuiying well and give you an explanation. Go back and have a good rest." "Thank you, Grandma. My granddaughter will leave first." Sulayun took a few steps back, turned and left. Kaya Huaziazu. As soon as Sulayun entered the room, Sun Gro and Suye were already waiting for her. "Mother." Sun Gro stepped forward and pulled Sulayun over, sitting down next to her. "What is going on today?" "Lu Shuiying took my embroidery and gave it to Mrs. Li as her birthday gift." Sulayun explained in an understatement, but Sun Gro turned pale and felt a little annoyed. If Yun'er didn't react, wouldn't he be accused of teasing his elders? Su Changjing really raised a good daughter. Sun Gro did not get along well with Su Changjing because of the affairs between the Sun family and the Lu family, but she had never treated Su Changjing's children badly. She would always prepare gifts to send to Suzhou during holidays. In the early years when Su Changjing was not married, she was even more considerate, but now she behaves like this. Sun Gro was really heartbroken. "Mom, my daughter isn't angry yet, why should you be angry with yourself? It's not worth it." Sulayun comforted her by saying that she was indeed not too angry. She already knew their temper, so why should she be angry? It is not worth it to make yourself angry for nothing. Sun Gro knew she was right, but she still sighed and said, "If I had known better, my mother would have gone with you." In this way, she could still protect Yun'er at that time. "Mom, it's my fault too. I didn't find out what was going on with my sister in time." Suye scratched his head, blaming himself a little. If he had paid more attention, he wouldn't have left his sister there alone to be questioned. Seeing both of them looking remorseful, Sulayun burst out laughing, "Mom, brother, now is not a good season for eating bitter melon. Ma Mordika Karantia." Suya looked confused. You look like this now, don't you have a bitter face? Yu Sun-gro also smiled, you know how to tease my mother and brother. Mom, don't worry, my daughter won't let herself be wronged. Soleun hugged Sun-gro, his voice soft and firm. At night, Soleun heard a noise outside the house. Miss, the second cousin is here. Lian Xian entered the room with a strange look on her face and announced the arrival. Soleun put down the book in his hand, stood up and left the room. In the yard, Qinglu was kneeling on the ground. When he saw Soleun coming out, he immediately kowtowed and said, Miss Yunur, I'm here to apologize to you. It's all my fault. I saw that your embroidery was beautiful, so I secretly take it, and think about taking credit from the lady, it's all your fault. His forehead hit the ground, and blood started to flow out within a moment. Lu Shuiying glanced at the maid behind her and said reluctantly, Sister Yunur, these are Shuiying's apology gifts to you. I hope you can accept them. After saying this, Lu Shuiying did not dare to look at those things and turned her head away. The maids came forward with plates, containing a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry, which looked expensive. Cousin, take it back, I won't accept these things. Don't accept it, Lu Shuiying's voice couldn't help but rise a little, and then fell down quickly. Sister, are you still blaming me? It's because I didn't take care of the servants. If sister thinks it's not enough, you can do whatever you want with King Liu. Her tone completely treated King Liu as an object, not a maid who had served her for many years. Soleun's eyes flashed across King Liu, who kowtowed until his head was covered with blood, but he didn't dare to stop. He even kowtowed a little harder when he heard Lu Sui's words. This matter is not King Liu's fault in the final analysis. Soleun rubbed her forehead. She couldn't watch others get into trouble, right? Sighed, cousin, I forgive you, but the jade bracelet that my grandmother gave me is enough. These things have always been your favorite, and I really can't accept them. You said that, then I'll take it back. Lu Shuiying's eyes lit up. It was Soleun who said he didn't want it anyway, and it wasn't like she wouldn't give it to him. She waved and went back with an apology. King Liu was left alone, still kneeling on the ground. You still can't get up. Soleun saw that although King Liu did not continue to kowtow, he was still kneeling and did not get up. King Liu said in a very soft voice, the old lady asked the servant to kneel in Miss Yunus' yard all night. Do you think you can last until tomorrow morning? Soleun's tone was a little more serious. After kneeling all night, the old lady came up with a good idea. If she allowed Qinglu to kneel down, she might be told that she was cold-blooded the next day. He was ruthless. Lian Xian, pull her up and take her back to my cousin's yard. Yes. Lian Xian stepped forward and was about to pull someone away, but was avoided by Qinglu. Miss Yunur, I can't go back. King Liu was trembling, not sure whether it was cold or fear. Soleun lowered his eyes and glanced at Qinglu. In that case, let's stay in my yard tonight. Miss Yunur. King Liu kowtowed again, then was helped up by Lian Xian and walked to the servants' room on the other side. Soleun entered the room and slowly took off the veil. The skin on his face was as white as usual and he was completely healed. But she still wore the veil. It will take several days to take the medicine left by the imperial Dr. Wu before she can have a healthy face. If she had taken off her veil early, she might have let others know that her face had healed long ago. And she didn't want to reveal her medical skills prematurely. Miss, King Liu has been arranged. Lian Xian pushed the door open and closed it gently, cutting off the air conditioning outside the house. Soleun nodded, let Quiliu pay attention to King Liu. If there is any movement, tell me immediately. Miss, are you worried about what King Liu will do? Lian Xian was a little puzzled. I just have a little doubt. If she didn't do it, it would be good. Soleun looked at his own eyes in the bronze mirror and lowered the curve of his mouth. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 80. Chapter 80. Who is the person behind the scenes? Late night, in the servant's room. King Lear was sitting on the edge of the bed, seemingly holding something in her hand. She swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, tremblingly took out the thing in her hand, and patted the white powder into the teacup. The hand that picked up the teacup was still shaking as he brought it to his mouth. After only a few sips, Qing Lu suddenly put down the teacup, not daring to drink any more. After a moment, her body began to tremble slightly, and she collapsed back on the bed. Breathing gradually becomes faster. Kualai was awakened by the sound of gasping. Looking inside the house, she realized something was wrong. She pushed open the door, rushed to the bedside, stretched out her hand, and King Liu's palms were sweating. Kualai frowned and quickly left the house. Miss. Lian Xian called Suleun in a low voice, and finally woke him up after several calls. Suleun blinked his eyes and became more conscious. What happened to King Liu? She drank the poison tea. Lian Xian was stunned for a moment when she heard Suleun's words, and quickly realized that this was what her young lady was worried about. In any case, King Liu's death in Kahuaziazu is not a good thing for Suleun. My servant has done some processing, but King Liu's condition is not good. As Lian Xian said this, she took her coat and put it on Suleun, and the two of them walked towards the house where King Liu was. As soon as Suleun entered the room, he smelled a fresh fragrance. Her expression was a little more solemn, and she stepped forward to check King Liu's pulse. The color of her lips has turned purple. If she can't find a way to force out the poison, King Liu will be close to death. Suleun took out the silver needle and placed needles on several acupuncture points of King Liu. Seeing that King Liu's complexion softened a bit, he breathed a sigh of relief and said to Lian Xian, "Where were those medicinal materials before? Get these for me. Come." She reported a few medicinal ingredients. Lian Xian quickly wrote them down, and ran out without delay. Kualai looked at the busy Suleun and said, "Miss, is there anything I can do for you?" "Yes." Suleun raised his head and looked at Kualai. "Look after King Liu for me, and call me if you find something wrong with her face." Suleun finished speaking, twisting up the white powder beside the bed, putting it between his nose and sniffing it. The fragrance comes from this white powder. Poison with a fragrant smell, or in powder form. Suleun had several thoughts in his mind. She took out a few wet tea leaves from the teacup and scattered the powder on them. After a while, the dark green tea leaves slowly turned black. At this time, Suleun also determined what kind of poison King Liu drank. Soon, Lian Xian took the medicinal materials and placed them on the table one by one. "Miss, would you like me to ask the doctor to come?" Lian Xian was a little worried. "Miss, please go ahead, please go faster." As soon as Kualai heard this, he returned immediately. Suleun waved his hand. "If you go to ask for a doctor, aren't you just alarming others?" She looked at the medicinal materials on the table and felt relieved. Fortunately, all the medicinal materials she needed were available. Looking at Suleun's busy figure, Lian Xian and Kualai looked at each other, then looked at Suleun anxiously. "What should I do if the young lady cannot save King Liu?" "Miss, something is not right with King Liu." Kualai noticed King Liu's reaction and said quickly. Suleun turned around and looked at King Liu, took another needle and inserted it into an acup ointment. "Lian Xian, go make a fire and burn the medicine." "Yes." Suleun moved his hands a little faster, and finally processed all the needed medicinal materials. At this time, Lian Xian had also set up a pot for decoction. Suleun poured the medicinal materials into it and started to cook it. Asking Lian Xian to pay attention to the fire, Suleun returned to the bedside to ensure King Liu's condition. "Miss, the medicine is ready." Lian Xian came over with the medicine. When she saw the silver needles on Qing Liu's hand, she couldn't help but blinked and didn't dare to look more. So Leun took off the silver needles one by one and said, "Give her some medicine." Su King Liu didn't want to die, so she drank the medicine subconsciously, and soon she drank a bowl of medicine. After waiting for a few more cups of tea, King Liu suddenly turned around and spit something out of her mouth. So Leun stood up, put away the silver needles one by one, and arranged them. She will be fine after she vomits. Lian Xian, you stay and take care of her. Yes, miss. So Leun returned to the house, rubbed his brows tiredly, and fell asleep soon after getting on the bed. After Lian Xian had finished cleaning up Qing Liu's mess, she heard a muffled grunt, which was when Qing Liu regained her consciousness. Am I dead? No. Facing King Liu, Lian Xian had no good expression. If you want to die, I can help you, but if you want to die in Kahuaziazu, there is no such possibility. Qing Liu's face turned even paler. She looked at Lian Xian and shook her head with a grimace. I can't help it. But you're alive now, or if you still want to die, I'm afraid you'll have to bite your tongue. Looking at Qing Liu's expression, Lian Xian understood that the other party no longer dared to seek death. The next day, So Leun was drowsily asleep when he heard a loud noise coming from outside the house. It seems to be Grandma Zhang. Green Willow. So Leun called out, and Kui Lu came in from the outside. Miss, you're awake. The second cousin is bringing someone to pick up Qing Liu. Come to pick up King Liu. I'm afraid they're still looking for corpses. Kuilu stepped forward to help So Leun get up. When So Leun changed his clothes, put on his veil and walked out of the house, Lu Shuiying was already leading people to rush in. What is your cousin doing? Seeing So Leun, Lu Shuiying paused, cleared her throat and said, Sister Yun'er, I'm here to see King Liu, can you let her out? It turned out that I was here to find a maid. Looking at my cousin's attitude, I thought I was here to catch a thief. So Leun joked as he looked at the maids following Lu Shuiying. Lu Shuiying curled her lips. Sister Yun'er is really good at joking. Why don't you go find Qing Liu? Miss. Before the maids could find someone, King Liu was helped out of the house by Lian Xian. Seeing King Liu safe and sound, Lu Shuiying's expression changed. King Liu, are you okay? As soon as the sentence came out, she quickly shut her mouth, knowing that she had said the wrong thing. So Leun looked at Lu Shuiying with a half smile but not a smile. Cousin, what you said does mean something. It seems like you want something to happen to your maid. Lu Shuiying's face was stiff. I said the wrong thing at the moment, and I didn't mean what you said, sister. I will return the person to you. Cousin, please be more careful in the future and don't let your maid eat strange things in other people's yards. So Leun raised his head and motioned to Lian Xian to help him over. Lu Shuiying glared at King Liu, snorted coldly, and turned around to leave. King Liu followed Lu Shuiying with empty steps and left Kahuaziazu. Su Li looked at Lu Shuiying's back and frowned slightly. Was King Liu's poison given to her by Lu Shuiying? But she knew that Lu Shuiying would never think of using such a method to frame her. Behind this, I'm afraid someone is giving her advice. End of this chapter.